questions and be able to understand the differences. But in order to understand the differences, you want to understand what they are, right? So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nastahdihi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdi lahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala tajid lahu waliyan murshida. Last time we talked about in part one, we talked a lot about tazkiyah, the history of tazkiyah. We talked about postmodernism as the modern challenge, and the video is available on YouTube. So alhamdulillah, you guys, it's actually part of it, not the whole thing, but you can at least get 53 minutes of the previous lecture. But today, inshallah, we're going to be talking about not postmodernism, but we're going to be talking about spirituality from the in comparison with the other perspectives or other philosophies. Why is that important? Well, remember, you're living in a very multicultural society where a lot of times you might get a monk, you might get a Buddhist guy, or somebody Shinto, or who knows what different religion, or Hindu, and you're wondering, okay, well, how's their spirituality different? Well, one day I was teaching at the U of M, and a Muslim girl, the class was about spirituality, and a Muslim girl comes up to me and she says, I'm actually studying spirituality in Islam by studying Hinduism. And I said, how are you going to study Islamic spirituality through Hinduism? She said, there's no way that we can understand people's spiritualities unless we look through different perspectives and get, I don't know how she romanticized the idea, but at the end of the day, it's really lots of confusion, because the main core of spirituality in Islam is totally different than the other philosophies or the other areas and how they see spirituality. Now, when we say spirituality, of course, in Islam, we mean by that as tazkiyah. But the word tazkiyah as cleansing doesn't actually give the meaning of tazkiyah as the word in the Quran and in the hadith were actually mentioned. Because the word tazkiyah or tazakka in Quran actually means to cleanse, but it's specifically talking about cleansing the nafs, cleansing the heart, cleansing the body, and there are certain understandings. Just like, for example, salah. Salah doesn't necessarily mean just a prayer, but there's a certain way to do the prayer. Salah became a terminology that refers to a certain understanding in Islam. Well, of course, spirituality, when we're talking about other philosophies, they're talking about meditation, they're talking about monks. What is a monk? What is a monk? Like a priest. Well, a priest is more, he's the educated part of it, but a monk is more a person that dedicated his life to worship, or well, depends what monk you're talking about, because you can have a monk that is like a Tao monk, and they don't even believe in God. Yeah.
Some
Yep.
form of like.
They don't believe in God. It's Buddhists and Confucianism. It doesn't believe in God, but they believe, and this is very important to keep note of, because a lot of Muslims are practicing yoga without them realizing that it actually is a religious practice. Religious does not necessarily mean that they have to believe in God. Any type of belief in the unseen, or whether that is God, or even if you deny God, it's still considered as a religion. So atheism is a religion, all right, even if they deny God. Because your understanding of the unseen, or what's after life, or the form of this life, if you look at even an atheist, they have an understanding, an idea of the Genesis, meaning how the whole world was formed and how everything came about. And they also have an understanding of the afterlife. And they also have an understanding, even though to them it's basically nothing, but they still have an understanding to it. It's considered a religion. Even if they, in fact, by the way, it's so funny that atheists are the most ones to talk about religion. They're the most ones to actually be very dedicated to refuting religion, and they actually use more time to refute and talk about religion than religious people themselves. Regardless. Now, when you look at religions, you're talking about three types of religions. Why am I talking about this? Because the understanding of spirituality. When you're going to be taking classes, social studies, religious classes in universities, you need to put these things in perspective to be able to answer some questions as university students. Religions are actually in three categories. Category one, religions that are monotheistic religions, meaning religions that are believing of Prophet Ibrahim, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one God. The whole idea is believing in one God. All right? Monotheistic religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And then you can add different Ahmadiyya and those other ones. The other types of religions are the polytheistic religions. Those religions that don't believe in one God, but believe in multiple gods. It can be the God of love, the God of hate, the God of rain, the God of fertility, and the list goes on and on. The other types of other types of religions, they don't believe in any understanding of God, but believe in a culture to connect you with the unseen. So you're looking at Buddhism, you're looking at Taoism, you're looking at Hinduism, shamans, all those would have that understanding. They don't believe in God, but they would believe that they're connecting themselves with some spiritual things. So a Buddhist monk doesn't believe in God, but a Buddhist monk would take all the hours to isolate himself from the world in order to get to a level of focus, a level of concentration. If you ask a Tao monk, those are in China, and they're actually a big number. If you ask a Tao monk, what is your goal in attaining spirituality? What are you trying to get to? It's really trying to get to think of nothing. That's the level of focus. Now, if you look at the different martial arts were actually ways to attaining spirituality. So karate, kung fu, or whatever it is, all those were to help the person attain a certain focus, get a certain level of focus in order to be able to get to a level of spirituality where you're connected with not God, because they don't believe in God, but connected with your own self. All right? Now, in Islam, the whole idea is totally different. In Islam, it's not polytheism, because in polytheism, you're actually connecting yourself with what? With that particular God. So in India, it's not number of religions as much as it's number of spiritualities. So you got 800 million Hindus that are not necessarily different religions, but they're different ways of spirituality. And most of those ways of spirituality is about mortifying the flesh. So you're killing your body in some way. If you look at Buddha, for example, Buddha actually drank his own urine in order to get to a level of spirituality. Yep. He even ate his own feces to get to a level of spirituality. I know it's disgusting, but he didn't think of it as disgusting, but he thought of it as a way to gain spirituality by not focusing on the flesh. All right. Now, flesh meaning body. Now you're looking at all that. You see, man doesn't realize that when they are trying to a lot of times understand without guidance, they can go as very wrong as Buddha. And they can go very wrong, as you see in different Hindu religions, where they're willing to worship mice. They'll be bowing down for mice and bowing down for rats, just because they would actually consider that God somehow is shaped into these mice, or has the spirits of God, or whatever. Now, when you look at spirituality, you see people's focus on spirituality and people trying to attain spirituality can go left and right, can go very wrong. So the question is, where's the Western spirituality right now focusing on? What? Meditation. What is meditation?
Like mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Trying to focus on your taking deep breaths, trying to take. Now, what is right now happening in the West is that it's actually plagiarizing a lot of Eastern spiritualities, in specifically atheist spiritualities. When I say atheist spirituality, and that's where yoga comes in. Yoga is not necessarily just some kind of an innocent way of doing some kind of a, I don't know, martial arts or some kind of a somersault in order to keep you focused. It's not necessarily just an innocent somersault, but it is actually a religion. It is actually plagiarized from the religion. Now, the atheist West right now is actually plagiarizing those different ways of spirituality from many Eastern religions simply because the atheist West doesn't have one. Or you could say, had that antagony, that separation from the Christian spirituality, which they saw in it a lot of legends, so now they're starting to take from other legends. So why didn't they take from Islam? Why not Islam?
Too many rules. They don't have to follow rules.
Yeah, why not Islam? Why not Islam?
Because they believe in God.
Because Islam believes in God. Well, so do Jews. Why not Islam? There was a long history of stereotyping Islam as believing in the moon god. A long history of Islam being stereotyped as a religion of bloodshed. A long history that goes all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ's time. So when you see all those different stereotypical images, they were not going to think about Islam because Islam has a long history of being the anti-Christ. You'll be surprised to actually know that they actually thought that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the Antichrist himself. Antichrist meaning the Dajjal. All right? Meaning the Dajjal. Well, I'm not going to stay long on this. I just wanted you guys to understand where, when we talk about spirituality, it's a totally different term than what other religions use. All right, spirituality, what we mean by that, I just use spirituality as the term to pretty much give a closer understanding for the word tazkiyah, but even that term does not really give it its right. Okay, here we go. Yes. Is it wrong for a Muslim to do yoga? If you're just doing an exercise, you want to make sure that you're not doing it as exactly that yoga master is doing it, because then you're actually plagiarizing a religion. In Islam, you cannot plagiarize a religion, or you cannot imitate a prayer in any religion. In any religion. But if you're doing it as a form of an exercise, just don't do it as they would do it in the order that they would do it in, because you want to make sure that you as a Muslim, you're not just practicing something blindly. Sally.
When we get people to teach yoga, like for example next door or at like events and things, we'll tell like the yoga teacher to like slightly modify the poses ever so slightly, just so that it's not imitation. That's okay, right?
That's okay. Yep, that's okay.
We tried for a couple times calling it like reflex or like reflex and stretch and stuff like that, and people didn't understand. So we would just call it yoga, but we would tell the teachers to slightly modify it.
That's okay.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. That's okay, as long as you're actually saying, yeah, modify it, because, yep, that's totally fine. But you want to be careful. Like, for example, they will use certain words, they will use certain sounds, so you want to be careful with that. You can probably even modify it even more to do, different sounds, just to make sure you're not falling into the shirk without you realizing. So this is a very dangerous issue. Now, here's the issue. Now, you want to remember that body, soul, and mind. Remember when we talked about spirituality, we said there's the body, mind, and soul. So when you say body, what do we mean by body? Your own flesh. Mind, what is the mind? The brain? Not necessarily. The mind in Islam is not necessarily the brain. The mind is really the different dynamics of thought. That may include, in fact, if you actually look at the Quran is actually talking about لَهُمْ أَفْئِدَةٌ. Al-af'ida are really not here, but here. Heart. Is it necessarily the heart meaning the organ heart? Is it necessarily meaning the organ heart? Well, it's something in the chest. Where is it? I'm not a scientist to exactly locate where it is, but in Islam it's telling you that that part of it is actually involved in the chest area. Part of it is involved in the heart area, and therefore the dynamics of thinking to making decisions is the mind that we're talking about. We're not necessarily talking about the brain. All right? When we say mind, we're talking about the thinking process, the decision-making process, and that's the mind. When we're talking about soul, we're talking about soul, meaning ruh, the ruh that's keeping you alive, the ruh that departs your body when you die, and the ruh that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the ruh that actually gets closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? We don't actually know. Now, the ruh does actually, when you sleep, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually makes you go into a moment of death, or a pseudo death when you actually sleep. What does it mean? How does it go in a pseudo death? What happens in the end is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's why when we sleep we make the dua, Allahumma bismika wada'tu jambi wa bika arfa'u, Allahumma in amsakta nafsi farhamha wa in arsaltaha fahfadha bima tahfadhu bihi ibadaka as-salihin. Ya Allah, Allahumma bismika wada'tu jambi. Ya Allah, in your name I rest my side. وَبِكَ أَرْفَعُ, and in your name I raise it. Allahumma in amsakta nafsi farhamha. Ya Allah, if you hold my nafs, that is my soul, farhamha, then be merciful on it. وَإِنْ أَرْسَلْتَهَا فَاحْفَظْهَا بِمَا تَحْفَظُ بِهِ عِبَادَكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. If you send it away, then preserve it in the caste that you preserve your pious servants in. Meaning, if you take my soul and you send it to death. Now, what we want to know in a spiritual sense, the ruh to mean closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does it actually mean? If you are to say closer to Allah meaning in body, that's actually not accurate. But if you mean closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your ruh, in yourself, well, the details of how does it look like in shape, this is left for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we do know that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that if the man stands to pray and focuses with their face, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be face to face with that person. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be face to face with that person. What does that mean? Face to face with the person. Is that we're talking about physical thing? No, we leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How, and all the details of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks like, and all the details are actually beyond our capacity to imagine it, because your terms in physics and your terms of dimensions apply to you, but don't apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are you understanding me? Kawsar. So for example, if I were going to say, how old is Allah? Your term of time applies to you as a human being, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created time, created distance, and created all those different things that you learned in physics. Those things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, they don't apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are you understanding me, Hamza? So you can't ask how old is God Almighty, because God Almighty is beyond time. You're applying a law of physics that matches you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for you. You can't apply it on Allah. Are you understanding me, Kausar? You can't apply it on Allah. It doesn't go there. All right? Same thing. How big is Allah? You're applying dimensions based on your own human terms. You know, my kids, let me just give you an idea. My son, he's just, I don't know, right now obsessed with watching hamsters. Hamsters on YouTube, and he's looking at these hamsters. Now, the person that is doing the videos is always letting this hamster, they're making pancakes for the hamster, they've got spoons, forks for the hamsters, a house for the hamster, a chair, and apparently the hamster doesn't get using the spoon, so it goes directly to the cupcake or pancake or whatever. Now, of course, the human term is that we're using these things in order to help us put the pancake in our mouth, and we're using it to cut. But the hamster, that in the hamster's world, in the hamster's terms, this is not something that they need. They don't do it in the same term that you do it in. Now, that's the same thing. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's nothing like unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So your terms are different. Now, when we say closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't mean that physically. We leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had actually mentioned in a number of ahadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets closer to us. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yanzil ila sama'i dunya. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ascends to the skies of earth. How? We leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is standing face to face. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yadullahi fawqa aydihim. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand is above their hand. How? We leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We leave that. How? We're not going to go into that detail in order not to go for anthropomorphism. What is anthropomorphism? Anthropomorphism is basically when you start putting human attributes onto God. So you say God is pretty, so you start imagining pretty, soft face, wide eyes, black hair, whatever it is. All right? That's your human terms. Anthropomorphism. And that's the same thing when you look at Christianity, for example. What does God look like in their terms? Well, he looks like he's a blonde guy, he's blue-eyed. Well, it depends what Jesus you're talking about, because in the African Jesus, he's actually black, right? You guys saw how the Orthodox and the Oromo and then the Ethiopians, actually, their Jesus looks like a black guy. But the Western Jesus, he's blonde and blue-eyed, right? And I wonder how the Arab's Jesus looks like, or Chinese Jesus, I wonder what he looks like. But at the end of the day is that applying these terms and these attributes that belong to you as a human onto God Almighty is a form of anthropomorphism. All right? Is a form of anthropomorphism. So we don't apply that type of tashbih or anthropomorphism unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we leave it at that. 2 is that when you talk about closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we leave it in a form of spirituality, meaning that we leave it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is some connection. And with spirituality, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually tells you, وَاتَّقُوا and have taqwa, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you ilm. With certain taqwa, with certain levels of ilm, I'll give you a story. A man came, and Uthman bin Affan says, أَرَى الزِّنَا فِي عَيْنَيْكَ. I see zina in your eyes. The man got scared, and he says, أَوَحْيٌ بَعْدَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. Is there a revelation after the Prophet of Allah? How did you see that and read that in me? And he says, no. But but the mu'min sees but a mu'min sees through the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the mu'min ilm. And they'll start getting that farasa, they'll start getting that intuition just with their taqwa. Well, it doesn't mean that you give people more than what they really are and start thinking that, they're somehow seeing through the shadows and seeing through people's lives, or jinn somehow giving them any information. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, give taqwa, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says that if the mu'min gets closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the sight that they see in. the hand that they touch with, the legs that they walk with. How does it happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them the power. Remember, when you tell your hand to move, you don't tell it move, and you don't tell it, come on, let's go. That's not what you tell your hand. You just think of it and it just does. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you think of it and it just does, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that gave you that power. All right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that power, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you even more power when you have taqwa. How? That's the secret of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the secret of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can a mu'min be a mu'min but still be paralyzed? Yes. Are we necessarily talking about physical power? We're talking about spiritual power. Are you understanding me? Spiritual power. Now, when we talk about body, mind, what is the mind? The mind is supposed to help you make decisions. But the decisions that you make are not separate from what your perception in life is. Is it Sartu? Sartu. No yawning, Sartu. Wake up. All right? By the way, you guys, let me tell you something. When I was a little girl, I used to bully kids in school. Kids, don't do this at home. Okay? So if you guys see me bullying you in class, it's just some of that remaining part of me. Somewhere in the DNA. I guess we have some kind of a sharing DNA, huh? Yes. She's a Wazwaz, so we share something. Used to it, huh? You guys don't share this one. It's a secret. Sartu. Sally. No, I don't bully tall people. I'm a good girl. Especially if you're 6 feet, Sally. Trust me, I won't step on your toes. I'll be good, I promise. What was that?
She's 5'11 and a half.
5'11 and a half? That makes her 6 feet. That makes her 6 feet. 5'11 and a half. Just say 6 feet and make it short. Trust me, all she needs is a heel this big and she's already 6 feet. I can wear heels that big and I'll never become even close to that. All right. Now, when we talk about mind, again, it's the decision making, but the decision making does not happen on its own. It actually does what your body is motivating it to do, and what your soul, which is actually related to the perception of life that you take, is telling your mind to do. So for example, you decided to go to school and learn, for example, biology or whatever it is. When you decided to go to school, you actually did not take that decision separately from the environment, separately from your body. All that acted as what you did. The mind just took the decision to what you on the inside decided to do. Well, the question is, are the soul antagonistic to each other or not? This is a very important thing, because in all the other spiritualities, that is, remember, the polytheist spirituality, including Christianity or monotheist, in the Jewish, and especially the Hasidic, in the Hasidic on Orthodox Judaism, that the body actually takes you down and you have to mortify meaning kill the body, in some, not necessarily kill to really shoot the body, but you have to not give the body what it wants, because the body is taken away from your spirituality. That's the same thing with Hinduism. That's why in Hinduism they'd be walking on burning coal, they'd be walking on dead things or whatever it is, because they would feel that in order for me to become spiritual, I would have to mortify the body. I would have to give up on the body. That's the same thing with Buddhism, same thing with Taoism, same thing with Confucianism. The list goes on and on. Shamanism. You would have to mortify the body in order to become spiritual. In Islam, that's not the case. In Islam, no. Well, here's one thing, you guys. Unfortunately, Sufism actually plagiarized some of those ideologies and applied it there as well. Not all Sufis, but in many of the Sufi groups, they would also practice the same way, where they're totally separating themselves from the community, separating themselves from marriage, or separating themselves from many of the things around them. And they will, and the shaykh would actually tell their murid, which are the students, to not engage in these things, to even not drink a lot of water, or not eat enough food, or do a lot of things just to become more spiritual. You've got a lot of Sufi groups that would actually do that. Now, unfortunately, a lot of Sufi groups did actually plagiarize that type of spirituality from the other religions. All right. Now, that started at one point in the Muslim history when a lot of the books were translated from different countries and from different civilizations. And along with those translations, they took a lot of those ideas and the understanding of God and understanding about spirituality inside, and actually made it as an Islamic interpretation. And this is really dangerous because it's happening today as well. Just like that girl said that she's studying Hinduism in order to study Islam, it's happening today as well, where we're seeing people actually saying, well, let's right now revive our understanding of women's rights and etc. by looking at and studying feminism. It doesn't go like that. Islam is a totally complete and a separate, and it has its own system that you cannot actually bring from others. All right? So in Islam, no, the body is actually the tool to elevate your spirituality. All right? Yes, ma'am. In Ramadan, we're going to get to that. Because the body is the tool, to elevate your spirituality. In Islam, your spirituality uses your body, but it does not mortify it. It doesn't kill your body. In other words, even when you fast, it's a limited time. All right? Once your body is in danger, you would have to eat. All right? Let's say the person is, working in construction. And because they're working that construction, they're really getting really super dehydrated. Then they would have the right to drink. Why? Because once your body is in danger, you would have to keep your body. Preserving your body is actually a Muslim obligation. It's obligatory. All right? Not to the level of harming. In fact, in Islam, the reason why suicide is haram, because your body is a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Harming the body in any way, even if you are angry and you're cutting yourself, is actually haram. And that's why, believe it or not, I know this is weird, but believe it or not, but scholars had different opinions on whether even as simple as ear piercing, whether it's halal or not. Even if it's simple as ear piercing, because they had different opinions. Is that a form of deforming the body? Any type of deform done to the body is haram. Is that a type of deforming the body or not? Even if it's this, like Imam al-Ghazali regarded that even if it's just a simple earring, or something as simple as that on the earlobe, not on the top, but on the earlobe, they even had differences of opinions on that. How is it with the other details? All right? If you look at, we're going to talk about that, inshallah. Let's not jump onto all of them yet. Now, when we talk about the body and soul conflict in Islam, the body has certain gravity. Now, when you look at the gravity of the body, remember the gravity of the body. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. The word dassa, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the one that has purified it had succeeded, and the one that dassaha. Dassaha would mean that let it go down. Now when you say dassaha, to let it go down, and remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Prophet Adam alayhi salam, قُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا. اهْبِطُوا. اهْبِطُوا means go down. Go down where? Why? You could see something up and down. Those are, you're looking at up, down. When did he go down? Is it a down in position or is it down in place? In the end, the word that is used is ihbitu. All right. Now, when you look at that, the word that is used is ihbitu. The word that is used is ihbitu. You could actually there see. You could see from there that it's also given you that part to see that there is a down and there is a up. There's that elevation. What does it mean to be elevated? When was he sent down? He was sent down when he went against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he went against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning he somehow, his level of spirituality went down. You see, are you guys with me here? His level of spirituality, when it went down, that's when, sorry guys. When his level of spirituality went down, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually sent him down. When was his level of spirituality down? Well, his level of spirituality went down when he actually went against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why did he go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What? When he followed the shaitan. Let's hold on to that. When he followed the shaitan, his level of spirituality went down. What did shaitan tell him to do? Eat from the tree. It wasn't an apple tree, it was just a tree. Eat from the tree. Why eating? It wasn't an apple tree, no. It wasn't an apple tree. Just a tree. Nope. Notice that that Prophet Adam alayhi salam transgressed a limit, and that limit was more of, remember when we said the animal part of us, and we said eating, drinking, and reproduction? Notice that he went for a body motivation. He thought that he was going to live long. Hold on to this. He thought he was going to live, the Iblis was telling him, and yumanni, he was putting in that hope that he was going to live a long life. أَوَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى شَجَرَةِ الْخُلْدِ وَمُلْكٍ لَا يَبْلَى. شَجَرَةِ الْخُلْد, meaning the life of living forever and ever. Eternity. Eternity. A tree of eternity. What did he do? He ate from the tree. Notice, you guys, ate from the tree. Why? Because in hope to live eternal or eternally. What happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala badat lahuma sawatuhuma. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uncovered their saw'ah. What is saw'ah? Private parts. You guys remember when we talked about animals and humans, we said that with animals, we as humans, we share what? Eating, drinking, and reproduction make up struggle for survival. Look at the metaphor in the words. What did Prophet Adam do? He ate. Why? To live eternally. That is struggle for survival. All right? What happened? His private parts appeared. Appeared? Is it a metaphor for reproduction? Are you guys seeing what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, here that whole story was to tell us how we share common grounds with the animals, and that body is the one to take us to step down. That's the gravity that's pulling us down instead of getting elevated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our spirituality. When do we go down? When we let our body control our motives. And then when we take the decision, he ate because his spirituality went down and he obeyed shaitan. Now, when we look at the body is supposed to be the tool. The body is supposed to be the tool that's supposed to open the path to elevate you. But the body can actually take you with that gravity, pull you down. قُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا or اهْبِطَا. Go down. That's the term that the ayat were actually using. Now, in order for people to seek spirituality, look at the story of Prophet Adam. The story of Prophet Adam was mentioned in numerous ayat in order to tell you not just the real story of Prophet Adam, but the story of Prophet Adam is the story of you and the story of me. It's the same story. Is that when you eat, what it gets exposed? Your shahwa, your desire. And that's why if you go back, the Prophet ﷺ said, يَا مَعْشَرَ الشَّبَابِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمُ الْبَاءَةَ فَلْيَتَزَوَّجْ. Wait a minute, what? Talking to the youth. Whoever is capable of getting married, i.e. you've got the financial and the physical capacity, then get married. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعَ فَعَلَيْهِ بِالصَّوْمِ. Whoever is not capable of getting married, then عَلَيْهِ بِالصَّوْمِ. Marriage is what? Marriage is to fulfill a lust, right? What does food have to do with lust? It feeds it. Are you with me here? What does food have to do? What does eating from the tree have to do with Prophet Adam's private parts are getting uncovered? Lust. Are you guys seeing? Are you guys seeing what I'm talking about? Okay, good. Now that's the same thing. Is that what you eat is not, and your lust, it all feeds it. Your body, what you feed your body in terms of senses, what you look at, what you drink, what you hear, what you do in your daily life, all that acts as the main tool to actually pull you down, ihbita or ihbitu, or it has the power, and how depends how you control it, and it also has the power to elevate you. But you have to make the decision how you want to get those senses, what you eat, your lust. You want to make sure that you're controlling those motives to make sure that it's not pulling you down. Because if you look at all the different things around you, they're mainly focused on those different lusts around you. Eating, drinking, looking, struggle for survival, how you appear. You look very beautiful in this, just try it. And then you will look just beautiful. Your eyebrows, you need to make them thicker. Well, this time, the fashion change, you need to make them lighter. Oh, your nose, you need to do some kind of a surgery. Plastic surgery would do you best. Your lips, you need to puff them up. Botox would just be just very good for you. Oh, your teeth, you know what? Why don't you add some shape to it? And guess what? They got these lights that'll make them really white. Oh, your skin, you're a little bit too dark. You know what? You can actually right now do lots of whitening to it. Oh, guess what? And you can add some more. Oh, your hair, if it's a little bit coarse, you can actually do lots of straightening to it, and a relaxer would do you just beautiful. Oh, your legs, you know what? You can actually do some more of plastic surgery, and you can be just great. And the list goes on and on, right? And without you realizing, no, and this is not talking about you.
I know.
All right? This is not talking about you. You're mashallah aliki. You're very beautiful. This is just, talking about what's outside and how it's focusing on the body and taking away your focus from what's more important. Now, when we talk about Islam's point of view, in order to build a civilization, you are the center. When you say you are the center, you look at the civilizations around you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. A khalifa is what? What? Khalifa is what? A leader? What is a Khalifa? A leader. Representative on who? Who is he representing?
All creation.
All creation. Khalifa is what? Khalifa is a creature that is after another creature. When you say Khalfa, what's behind me? That's Khalfa. Khalifa, a vicegerent, something that's coming after. In other words, a creature that's coming after. But what's that creature supposed to be doing? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the intellect to do the decision making, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. He taught him. Why? Because the tool was intellect, mind, and free will. Mind and free will are the tools for the person to be the Khalifa. But this Khalifa, this creature, is different than other creatures. Why? Because remember, إِنَّا عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ. Al-amana. What amana? Al-amana, everything in this world actually goes according to a certain pattern. Al-amana is a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A trust from what? A trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you as a human, did not give the other creatures. The other creatures don't have free will, and they do as they're ordered to do. Al-jibal, is the mountain going to decide to do something different? No. Is the solar system going to decide to do something different? No. It follows a certain pattern, cannot go against it. But man has the free will and has the mind, the intellect, to decide to do the opposite. When we say Khalifa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and gave us the tools in order to bring about one, justice. What justice? Ar-Rahman. Continue, guys. علم القرآن خلق الإنسان. Wait a minute. علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان. Let's take one word at a time. Ar-Rahman علم القرآن. Taught the Quran. What does the Quran have to do with anything? Taught the Quran because in order to gain spirituality, you need a lens. The lens that you see through is the Quran. If you're not seeing, if your mind doesn't know and doesn't understand the purpose of where it's heading, it's going to go left and right in confusion. علم القرآن خلق الإنسان. Created man. Okay, created man, so what? علمه البيان. Gave him intellect. الشمس والقمر بحسبان. But although gave man intellect, but there's a certain pattern in this world. The sun, the moon are all following a certain pattern. Will man follow that pattern? الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان. Well, not just is the sky, the sun, and the moon following a certain pattern. In other words, that pattern is their form of spirituality. وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ. What is a najm? A najm, the star? No. A najm وَالشَّجَرُ. You don't combine two things that are two different things. A najm are the plants that grow on ground. A shajar are the plants that grow up. A najm are the plants that grow like cucumber plants and no, it's not stars, because a najm are the plants that grow on ground, and those are called najm. The plants, that's why when you say shams qamar, you combine. You don't combine apples and tomatoes. Those are two different things. Najm are the plants that grow on ground, trees that grow. Najm wa shajar yasjudan was-samaa rafa'aha, and the skies up above, all those different things. The sky, the sun, the moon, the trees, and the human is there. This whole pattern. Was-samaa rafa'aha wa wada'a al-mizan. And put justice. Il-mizan is the scale. The scale is a metaphor for justice. Civilizations cannot be built unless you have justice. When we talk about justice, justice includes justice to your body, justice to your perception, in your purpose and your understanding of life, and justice in dealing with one another, justice in morals, justice in your own creation, body, mind, and soul. That's why a very important book was written by Muhammad Qutb. It was one of the first books that I read as a 9th grader. It was for Muhammad Qutb, who's actually the brother of Sayyid Qutb. And he said, La ilaha illallah is more than just a divine understanding. More than just La ilaha illallah, that there's no God worthy of worship but Allah. But it is actually minhaj. It is actually a whole method. It is a whole curriculum. It is a whole understanding of legislature, understanding of God, understanding of life, and understanding of your own self. Because if you look at Fir'aun, did they not have a civilization? They definitely built the pyramids. They definitely did have some math, archaeology, and astronomy, and they had lots of physics, architecture. They definitely had some good physics, some good knowledge in math, some good knowledge in medicine. They definitely had the knowledge. But Islam or the Quran still called it Jahiliyyah. Are you with me here? It's still called Jahiliyyah. Even though they did have the math and they did have the knowledge, but Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarded it Jahiliyyah because they did not even have the right understanding of their purpose of life. There's a difference between modernity and between civilization. Civilization is وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. Modernity is different than civilization. Civilization is when you yourself, you have that city, that whole city has an understanding of how it understands its own purpose of life and where it's going. And in other words, its spirituality, its understanding of its own life is in place. When we talk about the body, mind, and soul, we're talking about your own senses. Your own senses act as the keys that you want to use in order to elevate your spirituality. They're the keys. How do I get into a level of spirituality? Well, you have to use the keys that you have. In other words, if you want to become a better Muslim, to see beyond what people are seeing, you need to use your sight. Don't make it look into haram. If you want your heart to focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is your heart busy with? There's no way that you can stand up Allahu Akbar and be able to focus on your salah if all day your heart is focused on soap operas, music, and the list goes on and on. You're not going to get to that level of spirituality because your heart is busy with something else. If you want to do audio dhikr, dhikr is in different ways. When we say dhikr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the skies, يُسَبِّحُ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. All those do tasbih. That's a form of dhikr. The movement, the motion is a form of dhikr. All that, when we say form of dhikr, dhikr is in different ways. There's dhikr in action. The evidence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the skies are doing tasbih. That the skies are doing, what is tasbih? Tasbih is a spiritual thing that we do, subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. But the word yusabbihu also comes from the root sabaha, which means to swim, to glide. When you say to glide, to swim, and tells me the sky, the sun and the earth are in a form of gliding. That form of gliding, that glide, they're gliding in a way. One, it's as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told it to glide. Two, the glide in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a form of spirituality. Now that's why when you glide, you do tasbih. There are different forms of tasbih. The form of tasbih that the sun is doing, or the earth is doing, or Saturn, or Pluto, the form that they are doing is based on the duty that they were ordered to do. The duty that they were ordered to do, by following that duty, that is their dhikr. Same thing. You as a human, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a certain duty. That duty, well, remember, you're not a hamster. Your duty is different. Your duty is not turning around in circles, but your duty acts in a different form. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you the intellect. You've got the body, you've got the mind, you've got the soul. Your way of tasbih, your way of dhikr, yarhamkumullah, is totally different because you've got a different responsibility. The different responsibility, again, you're doing your dhikr, and that's why the human dhikr is different than the other types of dhikr. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُم. Everything is doing a form of dhikr. That form of dhikr, they're doing it based on what they're supposed to be doing. وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُم. But you don't know what their form of dhikr looks like because you have no idea what they were ordered to do. But did man do that form of dhikr? The form of dhikr you do, one, there's the oral dhikr. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. There's qawl al-haq, saying what's haq. There's the audio dhikr. What are you listening to? There's the dhikr in salah, in body. There's the dhikr in action. There's even the dhikr in dress. There's even the dhikr in what you're looking at. There's even the dhikr in how you're walking. There's even the dhikr in what environment you put yourself in. All that acts as a form of dhikr because the animals or the skies or the solar system's dhikr is totally different than your dhikr. If you put yourself in that type of dhikr, that is only when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whenever my servant is getting closer to me, I will be the eyes that they will see, the ears that they hear through, and the hands that they touch. When we look at how to attain spirituality, it starts with you controlling your senses. What are they doing? You control your senses, you will control the inside. If you want to get a spirituality, you can't say, I'm just going to pray Qiyam al-Layl, I'm going to do Qiyam al-Layl. You won't be able to do Qiyam al-Layl unless you control your senses to get your heart to a certain level, and then you'll be able to be like those people that do Qiyam al-Layl. In other words, what direction and who are you imitating? What direction are you heading to? Where do you take your magnet from? Remember, the compass basically goes based on the magnet, right? Now that's the same thing. What magnet and what direction are you heading? There's no way that you can actually just head going left and right, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually said that the people that are not following guidance are like the people that are going down in the seas, down and down and down, and it's darkness upon darkness and upon darkness. That darkness gets to the level where you could actually lose balance, and you could go left and right, and you're totally unaware of where you're going. And that's why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling us in order for you to understand what direction you're heading to, you want to remember that you're between two directions. Let me, before I get to that one, this one. You're between two directions. You're the middle of the star. There's the place and time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, قُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَشْقَى. طيب. Or فَمَنْ تَبِعَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. قُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا. اهْبِطوا. When do you go down? It's a place. Right? It's a place. Now when you're looking at a place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى. If you get guidance, in order guidance to give you what? To give you the direction. The manual. Where am I heading? Which way to go? If you get that, the place, you will not understand who you are unless you know where you are. Where am I? Don't just say Earth, but where am I in this galaxy? Put yourself in perspective. Where am I in terms of place and in terms of time? Time tells me, where am I heading? What next in life? Where? What's after this life? And that's why Qis ibn Sa'd al-Iyadi, who was one of the Ahnaf, he was one of the Ahnaf that lived before the time of the Prophet ﷺ. But he gave a very long oration, even though he didn't know anything about Islam because he was before Islam. But he said, أيها الناس اسمعوا وعوا إنه من عاش مات ومن مات فات وكل ما هو آت آت ليل داج ونهار ساج وسماء ذات أبراج. Now here, Qis ibn Sa'd al-Iyadi or Qus ibn Sa'd al-Iyadi, both are right. He didn't make it to see the Prophet ﷺ. But just looking at the pattern of the world, he just said, "Oh people, أيها الناس اسمعوا وعوا." Listen and comprehend what I'm telling you. Now he starts finding and understanding and looking at a pattern. He didn't have an answer to the pattern, but through the pattern, he was trying to tell people there's something behind the pattern. What is the pattern? إِنَّهُ مَنْ عَاشَ مَاتٍ. We're seeing people, they're alive, now they're dead. وَمَنْ مَاتَ فَاتٍ. Now when they're dead, they're gone. And then مَنْ مَاتَ فَاتٍ. وَكُلُّ مَا هُوَ آتٍ آتٍ. If they're gone and there was life, there has to be something that they're going to. Because this magnificent creation did not just happen without a purpose. He saw through those different patterns in the world around him that there is a purpose to it. وَمَنْ مَاتَ فَاتْ وَكُلُّ مَا هُوَ آتٍ آتٍ. Where did you see that, Qus? He said, لَيْلٌ دَاج. See dark night? And then after the dark night comes daylight. Daylight, night, and then it keeps going. لَيْلٌ دَاج, نهار ساج, سماء ذات أبراج. The skies, they've got all these stars that are telling us there's a pattern. There's a pattern, and we can see through the pattern that there is a system. سماء ذات أبراج ونجوم تزهر وبحار تزخر. And we see the waves in the oceans going and coming, going and coming. It's a pattern, repetitive pattern, but it is done for a purpose. وبحار تزخر وجبال مرساة. See the high mountains. وأرض مدحاة. And we could see we're walking on earth, and again it's coming to a purpose. And then he says, في الذاهبين الأولين من القرون لنا بصائر. Looking at the people that died in the first, in the previous times, we could see a pattern that is telling us there's a purpose to it. في الذاهبين الأولين من القرون لنا بصائر لما رأيت مواردا للموت ليس لها مصادر. When I saw that death comes to people, but where is it coming from? What's bringing death? Who's in control of death and who's in control of life? Well, Qus didn't have an answer because there's no way to get to an answer unless you have a revelation. But Qus didn't have an answer because he didn't have a revelation to actually bring an answer. There's no way to get an answer. But he saw through the pattern that there's a purpose of life. Now, when we look at the purpose of life, he definitely didn't know that there was a time of judgment. That only came through revelation to tell us. But all Qus was able to do was see the pattern of place and time, but he didn't know where he was heading. People were just living. The people of Quraysh, that was it. The reason why they worshipped the idols was not necessarily because they believed that they were going to get to Jannah, but because they believed that they were going to get good luck with that. That was the only thing. Now you as a man, if you don't actually know where you're heading, your purpose in life, what's next? What's after this life? Your purpose, the purpose of creation, the purpose of the world around us. Why is that pattern actually taking place? Where is the pattern taking us? You're going to live between two things, sadness and fear. And that's depression. Yep, that's depression. Why is depression on the rise? Depression on the rise is because people, I'm not saying for different reasons as trauma. That's not what I'm talking about. Depression can have different reasons. I'm not saying that if somebody has depression, that means they're disbelievers. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm talking about different kinds of depressions. Depression is mainly on the rise because people are unaware of where they are and where they're heading in life. That takes them into living in fear, no hope, afraid, and sad. And that sadness, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ, about the mu'min, said, عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. A believer is very different, strange. A mu'min is very strange. إِنَّ أَمْرَهُ كُلُّهُ لَهُ خَيْرٌ. Every matter for a mu'min is good. Why? Because when something good happens to them, shakar, they're thankful. إِصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاءَ صَبَر. If a trauma takes place, they don't live centering that trauma and centering themselves around that trauma, but they go beyond it, sabr, because they know that that trauma is just a moment, a trial, time to move on. And there is something beyond that trauma, and that is al-akhirah. That is Jannah. But people, when they're centered around themselves in place and time, every trauma, they will be just focusing on it, and they can't put it in perspective in terms of place and time, and they'll live into this depression, and they'll live into the sadness and fear because they cannot put it in the wider perspective and move beyond it. Right? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ called the person that is capable of going beyond the trauma is the mu'min. What mu'min? What is a mu'min? A person that was putting the perspective of who they are in terms of the purpose of life, where they are in this world, and how they actually fit in this whole dynamics of time and place, and how they put that and their own selves in the perspective to go beyond those fears and to know that it's not the end. Never end your soul, because the person that ends their soul, they don't reach to ending their soul until they have reached to the level of losing hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's only when they would actually fall in this loss and fear, and then they end their life because they lose their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They lose their iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a sin and it's not kufr. Now, when we talk about spirituality, of course, when we talk about depression, we're talking about psychology. Psychology is totally different. Spirituality helps the person gain psychological healing. But psychological healing does not necessarily mean spiritual healing. Spiritual healing, that's a totally different thing. That's why you want to remember that in Islam, the spiritual healing is basically answering the question. It's called the ontological question, meaning where you are in this world, the purpose of life, what this life was created for, and this is to give you answers about yourself, you as a person, as a human being, this whole world, where am I heading, what am I doing? All that is basically the tool of understanding the fitrah. Now, when we look at spirituality in Islam is different than a lot of the people in the West, for example, that do yoga and all that. The reason why a lot of times they head for that is because there is that fitrah that wants to hang on, and our mind is wired, has a wiring to God Almighty, and then scientists would have their perspective and philosophers would have their perspective. But in the end, is that wiring in your mind to want to seek answers to the ontological question, who am I, what am I created, what's behind life, what started out life, where is life heading to, what happens after the end of life, all that. If somebody is an atheist, they're just going to seek psychological healing because to them, you're just a matter of motion in matter, or matter in motion. In Islam, you're not matter in motion. To the other philosophies, you're just matter. You're just a bunch of DNA moving about and in motion. That's basically it, really. You're just, in perspective, you're just nothing. You're just like a chair, just like a table. You just happen to be, and when you end, you end. In Islam, no. Your own existence is part of the whole spiritual and the whole purpose of creation. And that's why in Islam, your fitrah, answering the questions, who created me? What am I doing here? That is part of speaking spirituality. The answers to that question is the core of getting to your spirituality. Because if you're just doing a form of yoga, without even putting it in the whole spectrum, okay, what am I doing it for? Who am I doing it to? What next? You're basically just doing a form of a somersault. In Islam, this makes no sense. Now, when we talk about zuhd, this is a very common question. Does that mean separating myself from life, separating myself from the world? In Islam, it doesn't mean separating yourself. When you're gaining and attaining spirituality, it is not to actually mean you separate your body and yourself from the community or from the people around you. It actually means it's managing your body, your society, yourself. You are the center. You being a center, how do you deal with that? Meaning, even if a husband would put a morsel of food in his wife's mouth, that's a form of spirituality. And that's why the Sahaba were confused. And they said, أَيَأْتِي أَحَدُنَا شَهْوَةً وَيَكُونُ لَهُ فِيهَا أَجْرٌ. Can it happen that we're actually just fulfilling our own lust, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to actually reward us for it? And the Prophet ﷺ responded that, do you not see if he actually did it in the haram way, will he be sinful for it? And they said yes. And he said, right here is the same thing. In other words, can you actually enjoy a good moment with your husband, or I don't know, just eating, for example, a cupcake and doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and actually getting rewarded for it? Yes, you can. It doesn't necessarily have to be a form of ritual. Even you taking care of your child, you nursing your child is a form of spirituality. All right, 10 minutes. All that, of course, when we talk about a form of spirituality, so what is a form of spiritual decay? When we talk about spiritual decay, remember that graph that I had, time and place? Remember it? We just had it just a few minutes ago. Well, that tells you a lot. Because the first form or symptom of spiritual decay is the fitra itself decaying. One time in the Swedish Theological Institute, they asked me to give a lecture on the forbidden man. The forbidden man. Well, I said, okay, in order to understand what the forbidden man is, I gave the lecture the human definition, or the definition of human in Islam. Because if you understand the human definition and what is human, then you'll understand the forbidden man. There's no way to understand. Here's the thing, is that within the media, they want you to talk about what is hate and all that and what is not acceptable rather than what is acceptable. Why? To appear hating, hateful, angry. And this is exactly how I want you to appear. I don't know if I told you guys, but I was invited to give a talk on CNN. All right? And it was the Michael Smirkani's show. So the lady that was supposed to be the person that was basically organizing this, she told me, okay, well, when you come to the show, she saw some of the YouTube videos where I was wearing gray and purple. And she said, when you come to the show, can you, instead of wearing those colors, wear a black face covering and a head covering? I said, I don't normally wear black. But why do you want me to wear black? She said, it appears better on camera. I must admit, yeah, better on camera. I'm wondering how better on camera. I wonder why Michael Smirkanish is not wearing everything black. Or those other people, why aren't they wearing black? Doesn't it appear better on camera with them too, or does it just appear better on me? So when it was time for me to go, I actually wore red. Thought it looked romantic. So when I went there, here I am, I'm sitting in the studio and they're counting 10, 9, 8, 7. Now they were able to see me, so all of a sudden they said, cut, we can't have her. Why? Because I didn't appear in the color that they wanted me to appear. Black looks scarier, and now I look romantic. Definitely not the image that they wanted to portray. What was that?
You covered their terrorism look.
Of course, it doesn't give you that color. The color doesn't suit the stereotypical image that they wanted to bring me in. Well, of course, they're going to bring me in as dressed in black, and of course, they're going to ask those provocative questions, and then I'm going to start getting angry, and then I'm going to be exactly bringing in the image that looks angry, the stereotypical image, and that's going to be adding the sugar on the program and the salt on the program to appear the spicy program and to bring about that stereotypical image. Well, when we talk about how did we get here? كل مولود يولد على الفطرة, the spiritual decay. When we talk about the spiritual decay, there's always the fitra. The fitra, it's about making you human. It's about making you, what are you as a human? And like I said, that normally People have their own definitions of what is morals, what are morals, what is the definition of modesty, what is the definition of freedom, what is the definition of human rights, what is the definition of what is human, what is female, what is male, and the list goes on and on. But here in Islam, Islam actually regarded that every single person is actually born as good. In Christianity, every single person is born with an original sin. That's in Christianity. In Islam, you're not born with an original sin. As a matter of fact, you're actually born with a good fitrah. You're actually born with a good instinct. It is only the community, it is only the environment, it is only the media, it is only the peers, and the people around you are the ones that take away that pure creation, the good pure creation, out of the way that it was supposed to be heading to. Well, when you say out of the way, that actually means not being able to distinguish right from wrong. Not being able to distinguish right from wrong is when we're talking about spiritual decay, this is one sign of it. And that's why not being able to distinguish right from wrong and not being able to distinguish the different definitions, modesty, human rights, animal rights, justice, what is justice? And of course, what is extremism? Is it because I'm wearing a niqab I'm considered an extremist? Or is it because I'm wearing a hijab I'm considered not, or somehow oppressed? And then those definitions, if you look at Fir'aun, he was telling people that he was trying to protect them from Musa. He was trying to protect. Why? Because Musa was actually, according to Fir'aun, was actually bringing in destruction on earth. So what did he do? So Fir'aun wanted to appear as the person that was giving people their rights, and he was doing his civil duty, which is to protect the civilians and to protect the people from the evils of Musa. And then the same story continues. It happens again today. Now when we're getting the Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith narrated by Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ, narrated by Muslim, of course, and Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman was the narrator for this hadith. And when you say Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, you're talking about the Sahabi that has the most information about al-fitan. Al-fitan are trials, and also the signs of Judgment Day. That's Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman said that the Prophet ﷺ said, تعرض الفتن على القلوب كعرض الحصير عودا عودا فأي قلب أشربها نكتت فيه نكتة سوداء. That the trials, the fitan, what is fitan? Fitan are trials. تعرض على القلب, they're exposed to the heart, and any side of the heart that أشربها, when you say أشربها, absorbed it. What happens? It spots a black spot on the heart. What does it mean to spot a black spot on the heart? Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا, that they have hearts they cannot even comprehend with. What is that? It's the same heart that is mentioned here. Because when the heart, when your inside absorbs and starts liking that fitna, your body is going to take it inside, and it's ka'ard al-hasir. Al-hasir, I don't know what they're called, but al-hasir are like those kind of mats that are made of hay sticks. What are they called? The mats that are made of hay sticks, and they would be intertwined like this. And then the hadith is basically saying that the fitan are trying to find their way inside the heart, and then whenever the heart sucks it in, absorbs it, that's going to leave the black mark. And the more black marks on the heart, the more you will not be able to see haqq as haqq. and evilhood as evilhood. Because you will be so covered, your heart is so covered, which is responsible to seeing haqq or to seeing things in their own reality, that you will not be able to see haqq, you will only see it as batil. You will think that you're using your mind, but in reality, the media, the environment will be the one to shape your understanding of the world around you. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Verily, رَانَ, the rust has covered their hearts because of the actions that they have committed. مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, meaning that the actions that they did was the main reason why they weren't able to see the reality around them, or haqq as haqq. They started seeing haqq as batil, and batil as haqq. So if you start thinking, well, what does it have to do with any of this? Remember, ma'asiyah and sin will actually be the one to cover your heart, and then without you realizing, it can take you all the way to shirk. Let me just finish this one. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. Whoever stays away from dhikri. What is dhikr? Remember we said dhikr, your eye dhikr, your visual dhikr, your oral dhikr, your body dhikr, your action dhikr, all that type of dhikr. You don't let your senses do the dhikr that they're supposed to be doing. What is going to happen? وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. They're going to be resurrected on Judgment Day blind. Why blind and not lame? Because they weren't able to see haqq as haqq, because their hearts were covered with that rust to see what's haqq as haqq. And that's why فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. In مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ, in this life, they will live a life of confusion. If you say the word ضَنْكَ, you could see your tongue going up and down with it, meaning that they're just going left and right, unaware of where they're going. And that life of confusion brings about, because of the darkness, brings about the sadness, the depression, and the fear. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us away from that. Next week, inshallah, we'll be continuing with the spiritual decay, and we'll be talking about, inshallah, the different forms of tazkiyah. Wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Well, Sally is going to announce something. So how about, you know what, what's your question? What's your question?
With the spiritual decay that you mentioned, if a person is worried about like things that they cannot control in the future, you know,
They cannot?
that things in the future that are not in control, that for example has not happened yet, does that necessarily mean that person has a weak?
That's why belief in qadar is part of spiritual elevation. What is belief in qadar? Belief in qadar, in where you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that plans. You can put your effort, but at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the rizq for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the plans. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you that even when people are against you, and people are plotting against you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you, don't worry about that. That's not your job. Because inna Allah yudafa'u alladhina amanu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that defends the mu'mineen. You just worry about your dhikr. You worry about your dhikr. When we say dhikr, it includes the dhikr of your responsibility towards your children, your responsibility towards your husband, your responsibility towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You all that, worry about that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, Inna Allah yudafa'u alladhina amanu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that brings you the rizq. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that tells you, even in Surah Al-Talaq, and in Surah Al-Talaq, because that's the hardest time. That depression, when you put your hope in that human being, that he's going to be the person to bring you a better life, you lost hope. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that rizq comes من حيث وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Whoever has the taqwa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring the opening for them. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the rizq from where they did not expect, or where they least expected. Why did you least expect it from there? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that brings the rizq. You understand what I mean? So when you worry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept القدر لكي لا تأسوا على ما فاتكم ولا تفرحوا بما آتاكم. The qadar لكي لا تأسوا, so that you won't feel that depression, that trauma. You won't be centered around that trauma. ولا تفرحوا بما آتاكم. And even when you get something good, don't be too happy and forget to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why belief in qadar is part of spiritual elevation. Because spiritual elevation, if you didn't have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that's going to bring you the rizq, is going to bring you the solution, you're going to be centered around your own fear. What's going to happen? Am I going to lose the job? Then what? My visa, I'm probably going to lose it. My children, my husband, and then you're going to live centered around the problem without you realizing you're going to lose your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you're living based on earthly matters. Are we sinning? Well, we're getting into the spiritual decay, right? We'll be getting into the spiritual decay because once we're focused just on that, you're going into that moment of losing. Instead of focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're losing, you're centered around your own materialistic matters. You're only depending on your own self. Don't just depend on your own capacity or your husband's capacity, but depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do your part. Do your role. You have to do whatever it takes. Get education, get a job. Don't wait for rizq to come. It's not going to come to you like that. You have to do your role. But at the end of the day, you still have to have your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring you the rizq. Sally, go ahead, Habibti.
Assalamualaikum. Who was here last week? Raise your hand. Okay, who from the people that were here last week can tell me what the challenge was? What was the tazkiyah challenge? Okay, how many people were successful in the challenge? Okay, mashallah, good job.
Mashallah, good job.
Tell us something about it. Come on, I see a whole group over here. One of you guys, go ahead.
It was kind of hard because I fast since Ramadan.
Good
Did
one.
you fast with other people in your family? MashaAllah, what a good mom, right? Did you say thank you, Mama, for fasting with me? Alhamdulillah. How did you feel about fasting outside of Ramadan? Was it extra hard? No? Did you feel like good and fresh and happy afterwards? MashaAllah, good job. Someone give him a high five that's next to him. Good job, mashallah.
Mom was there.
Awesome. Someone who wasn't able to do the challenge, who wants to tell us why they struggled not doing the challenge? Okay, that's a fair thing. Who else? Who is someone who could have fasted but didn't for whatever reason? Come on, we're trying to grow and get better. Somebody be honest. Let's see why was it hard? Why was it difficult? Nobody wants to share? Okay, inshallah, that's fine. So for everybody that's new here this time, every single week we're going to do a challenge because we want to incorporate what we're learning. Last time Sheikh Aysha talked a little bit about Ramadan, so we said we're going to fast outside of Ramadan. This time we were talking a lot about spirituality and yoga and meditation and dhikr.
We're going to be doing jumping?
So we're going to be doing some mindful dhikr. So who here knows about how you're supposed to say dhikr in the morning and the evening? Well, you're supposed to. So what we're going to do is our challenge for this week is that we're going to try